got no order.
That's
all
fine.
right.
We'll do it by ear. Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey.
and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. I've not given anybody an order because that's just the running gag now. My name is Rat and Deadite. With me today are...
I am James, also known as Aramithius.
And I'm Andrew, also known as the White Guar.
And I think
See, that was smooth as butter.
I think something
Yeah.
I think an application of mine just made a noise. I'm going to tell it to not do that.
Hey.
Let's...
Yes.
play
thank you
sound.
so
Yes,
much,
stop doing
Ojak,
that.
for the Prime
Hey.
sub, and thank you,
Yeah.
Owain, for the Tier 1 subscription as well, just to flag those. I saw them
Oh,
pop
hey.
up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hey,
Thank you.
great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I
Swear to
love...
God.
Give me all your
We
Prime
need
subs,
to-
man. I need that Amazon bucks. Yeah, the Bezos bucks.
Twilight's making a good point. We need
When are we
that
going to do the
sexy
sexy?
calendar.
We're not doing the sexy calendar.
Like, I guess so. My mama's a photographer. I can
No.
totally have her
No.
take photos of me in like lingerie and stuff. She would think it's hilarious.
No.
No. No. No, if you and your family are winding up over here, we've got far better things to do than just take those sorts of pictures.
Yes.
That would be funny.
No.
Anyway, Sermon 18.
Sermon 18 today. Finally, because this is actually this is a deceptively critical sermon.
Yes.
It's in Sermon 29, Sermon 18 is called, is basically, you're told that it's Vivec's sermon. Vivec is 6 times the wise being number 3, so mathematically we get to 18. And it's not as obvious why this is super critical, but we'll get to that. It's a big important moment in Vivec's life that sort of informs why Z makes a lot of the dupes. Here's Felix. Why Z makes a lot of the decisions he makes. Yep, towards the end of...
Why does it always
there it is.
not...
Hey!
Yeah, it always, for whatever reason, doesn't start camera normally anymore, which is weird and annoying. And I don't know when and how and why that changed on Zoom. But anyway, hi, everybody.
I think you have it turned
Hello.
off. And local recording, please. Yes.
Oh, right. Yes. Hang on. Let me open up the gold wave, the wave of gold.
Gosh.
Of
Oh,
course.
blah, 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 blah. Oh, version 6.72. Don't care.
I was
that
involved
later.
in an unfortunate smelting accident.
3-hour recording duration should be fine.
Smoking a pancake.
Smoking back.
All right, so
Bongo
should hopefully
Blitz?
be
Hyper
recording,
great.
and everyone can hear me and see me
Yes.
just fine. We're all
I
good.
can't hear
Yes.
you at all, Felix. I'm sorry.
Oh well, funny that your response there
Yeah.
seems to
Seems
lead
to
me to
indicate
believe that you are
otherwise.
lying, good sir.
I was, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah, there's there's starting to be like a collection of words and phrases I hear on the internet that are starting to kind of like make me feel weird, like badly. And one of them is mayhaps, and the other one is dear sir, or good sir. Excuse me, good sir and mayhaps are starting to like. Every time I hear that now, I'm starting to be like, ugh.
What about
Just accept that you
perchance?
are a sir. Come on.
I like perchance.
Yeah, perchance is not great
Just
either.
As
Yeah.
a standalone sentence.
Oh, okay.
Perchance.
Perchance, mayhaps.
Ugh. Anywho,
Maybe.
Sermon 18. So.
Yes.
This also, as the beginning paragraph starts off, now Vivec felt that he had taught the Hortator as much as he could before the war with the Dwemer came. This is, of course, a reference to the previous, 6 sermons where Vivec is engaging in wacky hijinks while delivering
Fighting
the
the
3
Nords,
lessons to ruling kings. And
Yes.
the warrior poet decided he had to begin his Book of Hours at that point because the world was about to bend with its age.
I should also point out that the war with the Dwemer is basically the thing that happened after they kicked the Nords out. This is the beginning of the War of the First Council, if we're talking actual Morrowind history here.
So a Book of Hours is a Christian prayer book. It's a collection of texts, prayers, and psalms, much like the 36 Lessons.
but it's also prayers that are designed to be said at specific points in the day, hence Book of Hours.
Yes, Book of Hours, exactly.
So is it something that's more personal, like it's like a diary, like you're the only one who uses that particular Book of Hours?
Some of them possibly.
Them.
I've seen that I've seen that implication in some places.
Because I can imagine that being, if we think of one's relationship with a god as a personal thing, someone taking that, very, very personal. This is a thing that's me and the deity, and no one else needs to be involved. Book of Hours. This is my way. I don't know. I mean,
Owain's pointing out that they were monastic, that they were often used in monastic orders. I believe that's accurate.
Okay.
Yes. It was kind of one of the ways that they did the day. It was you get to kind of 3 hours after sunrise on the 29th of February or whatever, and you will always and therefore that means that you recite Psalm 54.
Well, like Buddhists do something similar, don't they?
Probably.
In monastic. I
I'm
mean,
not
maybe
sure.
not with a book necessarily,
so it also kind of depends because yes, within monastic orders, but I know that it also depends on which monastic order will put emphasis on different ones. So I know
I'm
that apparently there's like a big
net.
I don't want to say a schism, but there is a big point of divergence in how I think the Benedictines and the Augustines engage with the Book of Hours, or it's like the Benedictines and someone else. I forget. I'm again not a Christian, so I'm not super knowledgeable about this.
Franciscans.
The bigger orders are Franciscans and Dominicans.
Okay, that might be the ones that I'm thinking of then. Okay, that might be it, because I know I was actually at a monastery, and on the walls it was a French one, and so in French they have these signs that are kind of explaining here's how we do it, but you might encounter other monks that do it differently. And I was like, oh, interesting. Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was known. As for Buddhism, I don't know about their own monastic stuff, but again, just want to point out that there will be a difference between Theravada Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism in that regard.
Yeah.
So,
well, I don't know. I remember
what those differences are. I don't know. Again, I'm not a Buddhist.
I remember reading something about monks who they keep track of the hours of the day through prayer. Or something to that effect, and it's monastic, high up in the mountains,
it's hard to tell time in the first place.
Yeah. So prayers are how they keep that.
Yeah, it's a case of throughout the day, someone who is in constant prayer is now on XYZ point. Therefore, it's been however long, because those prayers take that amount of time to say.
Yeah.
I'm curious about why in this it talks about the Book of Hours being an antidote to the world aging, basically. I took it that it was an antidote because the world was about to bend with age, and obviously the world hasn't got so thoroughly decrepit even ages later.
I think that it means it's a turning point. I don't know if that's supposed to be a play on words. I just think that that's what, in my intuition, is that it's supposed to be like there's a major event about to happen. I don't really have anything other than my gut to back that up.
Could it be? I don't think this is the case. Could it be that Vivec is referring to when Z started writing the sermons in the first place?
No, because there is a Vivec's Book of Hours that you can get. It's in forum text.
Gotcha.
Vec's Book of Hours concerning the Dragon Break, for example.
Yep.
So yeah.
There is another way of looking at that about Book of Hours, and the world would bend with age. You could also look at it there's two ways. The silly way that I just thought of is kind of like how, time flies when you're having fun. So maybe the monks are just having so much fun that, or like they're not having so much fun. And so time comes to a standstill, and just be something kind of silly like that. But just discount that that's just me being silly. But the other way of potentially looking at that is bending with age can also be a way of referring to like wisdom or knowledge, which by engaging in monastic activities, you're supposed to thus gain greater knowledge and understanding of God's world of creation. You see similar things with like any kind of priestly or monastic order, regardless of religion. So that could be a way of also interpreting that segment, is that, he turned to the Book of Hours so that he could gain further knowledge and wisdom to better fight the Nords, is another way of looking at that.
Chad is pointing out that it might be a reference to the Red Moment.
Also possible.
If you're going to stress if you're going to stress the Kalpa at all, then the events at Red Mountain are definitely going to be one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the bend with age. I mean, that can also be a personification. Because when people get old, they tend to get old and bent, it's and that the crone is kind of hunched over, and so I wonder if it's saying that Vivec needs to write the Book of Hours because it's simply that time to do it,
or the earth bones are getting too old for this shit. Like, again, there's lots of ways of looking at
this. The world is old enough. It is now time to get started.
Although it's also, I think, given some of the stuff that happens with the first monster, so to speak, and gets mentioned, then I think it's also that there's something to do with Vivec's own personal journey, that it's later said that Vivec puts the first monster to death by writing the Book of Hours. So it's a question of I don't know whether it's purely down to that, or whether Vivec is self-centered enough to think that it would be such a momentous thing that it's a turning point for the whole world, him killing the monster within himself. Then
you're welcome, everybody.
Yeah, basically.
No, it's fine. I got it. Thanks. Just killed the worst thing in the whole world. No bigs. So Vivec entered the morning hold and announced to Iam that he was going to fight 9 monsters that had escaped the Muatra, to which Iam turned around and said, "Who starts a fucking conversation like that, Vivec? What the fuck?"
Also 9, magic number.
Yeah, very much so.
There's a little double speak in escape to the Muatra, I think.
Yes.
Do you want to unpack that?
Well, it's after the pomegranate banquet, or during it, Z goes around and slays all the monsters he can find with Muatra. So this is saying during that moment.
Yeah.
These are the ones that failed to be disassembled by.
To escape absorbed. The headsman is to avoid being beheaded. So to escape Muatra is to avoid that, but also, if we think of what Muatra is symbolic of, genitals and things escaping
a
genitals.
Phallic object.
Yes. That sounds to me like Ramen chowder.
And also just a little rapey.
I mean, without the Ramen, of course. Just Vivec chowder.
Also, if we're to take something else, it's also the children that I was taking it from the Mythic Dawn commentaries. The idea of he who enters paradise enters his own mother. If we're talking if we're talking a child that has escaped Vivec's sexuality, that has escaped Vivec's orbit, they are becoming something else. They're escaping Vivec's influence and need to be shut down. They are becoming their own people, in a way. And Vivec doesn't like things that Z can't control.
Yeah,
it's always me pointing out the penises.
Well, that's what you're here for.
Yeah, and there's also.
And your sole purpose.
And there's also the whole kind of the ones who escaped the Muatra. I'm just wondering. I just can't get away from the fact that that's an anagram. So it's from some that potentially escaped the whole experience of
the trauma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole trauma that came from the pomegranate banquet, and therefore that makes them somehow different than than everything else, but I cannot quite say why. I can't put my finger on why.
Could they be analogous to the Magna Key in any way? Do you think?
I don't think so.
I'm
not saying no.
I'm
but
really stretching it.
I was going to say it feels like a bit of a reach.
Yeah.
I can see where you're coming from, but Vivec doesn't really try to be Magnus, or doesn't try to be Locan, rather.
Well, just the idea of escaping and changing is what makes me think of the Magna Key, because they escaped Mundus and maybe they didn't change per se. Yeah. But I mean, they are different from the other Etata that we are familiar with.
So I will return, he said, to deal the last blow to the Grand Architect of the Dwemer, like a self-important prick. I am said.
He will return to kill Kagranak.
Is
the idea there. Is Vivec the one who actually kills Kagranak in the sermons?
Oh, that's a good question.
He already kicked the stars' asses and the moons. Yeah. Look at me go. That's my favorite thing. Just
that honestly sounds like something a dude would say when he's really drunk. It's like, yeah, man, I'm gonna kick the moon's ass, bright piece of shit. Like,
yeah,
that literally sounds like something a drunk dude in the streets of anyone's downtown core would say.
I was doing that at a World Boss yesterday in ESO.
It doesn't actually tell you.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading. It doesn't really say. Well, I'll put it this way. It says that that Almsevi destroys Numidium.
Yes. But the last thing that Kagranak does is reveal the Numidium, and then you never hear anything else about it. But if Kagranak is the first blighter and everything else, then
wait, isn't it also addressed in like Morrowind dialogue, depending on who you ask, that it was either Nerevar who slew Kagranak, or that Kagranak just like disappeared when he started like ringing the tones, and then all the Dwemer disappeared, and they're like, oh, okay.
It all depends. It all depends.
Red moment fucker.
Yeah, it all depends on what version of the Battle of Red Mountain you go by.
Maybe they all did.
Although actually, now I think about it. Oh no, that's Dumac. Sorry, I was about to say that whatever account of Red Mountain you read, then the source of if you think of everyone who is at the Battle of Red Mountain, each one sort of has an avatar of sorts and whichever account you're reading. So like Nerevar at Red Mountain has either Nerevar or Alandro Sul, one of those two, killed Dumac. If you read Vivec's account, Vivec does it. If you read the 5 Songs of King Wulfharth does it. They all claim to kill Dumac, aligning with the source of the text. They're all trying to take credit for wiping out the head of the Dwemer. That's
that's fucking great. One version said Vorin Dagoth killed them to steal the tools. Sure, yeah, why not? You know,
it's almost like a Caesar Ides of March kind of thing. Like, I killed Caesar. I was the 13th.
Owain, you can't even tell. You can't even trust. Like, if somehow we found the Dwemer's account of what happened, you can't even trust that, because then their report on who killed their king is just going to be whoever they hate the most.
Yeah,
you know. So all right, yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, this is why history in the Elder Scrolls is so much fun.
Because you don't know if it's true or not.
You can't trust any of it, and you kind of have to entertain all of them.
And there's bias that's built in.
Just huge bias, yeah.
And I mean that's just a human nature thing. And so to
clearly the gods killed Dumac.
In fiction is fucking cool.
Yeah, nobody's.
It helps make the world feel more real in that sense, even though many other things in the world make it feel not so real.
It's
little things that stick out to you, like in Morrowind. It's like, damn, people really don't like moving around their own places. They don't even sleep in beds.
Yeah.
Hey, why is this floating?
Why is everybody levitating? Yeah, you know.
And then in Skyrim, it's like, okay, so people have like 10 lines of dialogue. All right, cool.
Or when you have shadows turned on all the way, and you can see just people's shadows like on the wall next to you from
floating.
Upstairs.
Just floating.
Floating shadows. Yeah.
God, I hate shadows in Morrowind.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're ass.
Anyway.
The sooner people can get that NVIDIA RTX version of Morrowind up, the happier I'll be. Really, really looking forward to that. I am said, out of the 9 you will find only 8, though they be mighty. The last is already destroyed by your decision to create the Book of Hours.
Yes.
Vivec understood that I am meant himself. All right. So this is back to the whole idea of the Vivec's concept of just destruction as transformation. I think it's possible that Vivec might be trying to suggest that the destruction of Vivec here is the destruction of the mortal.
That's Vivec a little previous
by the god, but that's what I was about to say. Is that it seems like that should have happened before. So instead, I'm going to suggest that it's possible that the destruction here is because Vivec is creating the Book of Hours, this book of prayer. Vivec is destroying the concept of herself as a being or a god or something. That's I'm saying. It's like the destruction of a reputation or the destruction of a legend or something.
Well, I'm saying an analogy to Lorcan here.
So
okay.
Because out of 9 you will find only 8.
Only 8.
Well, there are 8 divines with the missing Lorcan or Talos.
Yes.
The last is already destroyed by your decision to create a Book of Hours. So, I mean, that's the part that stumps me on that interpretation of it.
I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before. When I read on stream my massive Kali post from back in the day.
Yeah.
What does the severed head in one of Kali's arms actually represent? And why the sword is below it? Pop quiz, people.
No.
It represents ego death. That's what it's meant to represent. So Kali is a personification of time. That's why she has that color, because it's to represent the purity and the kind of detachment from the mortal plane that time and existence are. And people think like the garland of skulls and heads and arms, that's a whole different thing. I should have gone and found it if I knew that we were going to be talking about it again. But generally speaking, the whole head and the severed head and sword were meant to signify ego death, to aid one in their journey towards spiritual enlightenment and reuniting with I think it's Atman or Brahman, the sum total energy of the cosmic universe. So that could be what Azura, sorry, not Azura, goddamn, I am too tired for this shit today. That's what I am probably or potentially means by talking about the final monsters that you'll have to defeat. And Vivek understood that it meant himself or herself, is because that's ego death. By writing the Book of Hours, you are thus transforming or transfiguring into something more than an individual. It is a form of destruction and creation, as well as hopefully to finally kill the ego by just being like, no, you know what? That's I'm bigger than this. It's no longer an individual. It is about these lessons. To sort of paraphrase what Andrew was getting at, how Lorcan failed so that others might learn how not to. That can also fit very nicely into that idea of ego death and transformation. At least I think so.
And well, it's also death of other things. We'll get to this later in this sermon, the whole idea of you can be nothing but Vivec. So it's the death of extraneous parts of Vivec as well. Death of hopes in a way.
Well, I hate to throw this into the mix here.
Yeah,
I think this is an idea that kind of agrees with Felix here, that in Sermon 31, Vivec mentions that the Book of Hours can only be written while wearing the water face. So the Book of Hours only consists of truth. And we understand truth from previous sermons. So it's the type of truth that Vivec interprets as truth. Which should be something like Vivec's outlook without concealment. sort of, if you want to think about it that way. The idea of Vivec's truth is just Vivec's opinion without any... it's a recording of Vivec's perception of the world without any bias or emotion or whatever. It's just, this is how Vivec sees things, and you know, without any kind of whatever. A
self-professed analyzing mind.
Right. Yeah. And ego death fits in with that because the idea of being able to examine your true self without you know, ulterior motive or shame or hate or etc. is kind of part of the point of ego death. To remove the ego from the self and then examine the core of your being. So anyway, why, she asked, are you in doubt? Vivec knew that his doubt made him the sword of the Triune, and so he did not feel shame or fear. Instead, he explained, and these are the words. Okay, so I have a little mention here about doubt in the New Worldling School, which is it seems unusual for God to doubt, but Vivec's nature as the delta point between mystery and mercy requires here to entertain disparate concepts. To doubt, one must first be able to comprehend a perspective from outside themselves, and Vivec's sister, mother, and brother, father do not have that luxury, metaphysically speaking. Because they represent polar opposites of each other, they are extremes, and therefore cannot understand each other. But Vivec was born to do this, and I didn't put this in there, but therefore, because Vivec can understand both extremes, Vivec has to be able to doubt.
Yes.
Because it's like being told two completely different truths. And in order to fully comprehend one, you have to be able to disbelieve the other and flip-flop back and forth between the two of them. So, so this is what Vivec says. And this
also,
is
just some of the stuff about being the sword of the Triune.
Mm-hmm.
A sword is also, it's, for starters, it's you can have double-edged sword idea that it can go one way, it can also go the other, and which again links back to the whole thing of doubt. But sword also separates things. It cuts, it cleaves,
right.
It draws dividing lines, and so you need to be able to see where those dividing lines are, examine, and so on, and discern. So you've got to have that investigative process behind that sort of a thing in order to do that effectively, at least in my mind.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yep. So Vivec tosses a bunch of word salad at us in a second.
No, come on. It's nothing but wisdom. These books are all amazing and great and fantastic.
We'll do our best to sort of tone it down.
Yes.
Can a member of the Invisible Gate become so archaic that its successor is not so much an improvement of the exact model, but rather a related model that is just needed more because of the currency of the world's condition? As the mother, you do not have to worry unless things in the future are so strange that even Set cannot understand. Neither does the executioner or the fool, but I am neither.
Vivec really needs to just stop
spit it
slagging,
out.
stop slagging off Nerevar.
Yeah.
That's how I read that. He's just, Vivec is just, yeah.
Vivec is musing on anticipations.
Right. What's happening here is when Vivec's talking about, okay, so the Invisible Gate is, of course, Amsavi.
Yes.
And what Vivec's basically saying is, yeah, Vivec is extra. That is it's so true. It's so extra.
Queen.
The problem here is that what Vivec is basically saying in this first paragraph. Well, let me do the second and third. These ideals are not going to change in nature, even though they may change in representation. But even in the West, the Rainmaker vanishes. No one needs him anymore. Can one oust the bottle, not because the bottle is set according to an ideal, but because it is tied to an ever-changing unconscious mortal agenda? Okay, so this is what that means. Basically, long story short, sum all that shit up, will Almsavi ever become redundant or useless, is what Vivec is asking. And Vivec is a lot of that language there is because Vivec is trying to illustrate that it is possible for objects of seeming permanence, like gods, to become useless because of the currency of the world's condition. In other words, the state that the world is in.
Yes. And the answer that you get from the Elder Scrolls 3 is yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
and although I'm not sure that I agree that the successor, that is the Wherein, is not so much an improvement, but rather a related model. I'm not sure that's quite the same.
I don't think so. But if you look at Elder Scrolls 5, Skyrim, you literally watch a god get removed. Not literally watch, but you see the after effects of a god being removed because of the currency of the world's condition.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, so it's making sure my dog's not eating anything. So Vivec is asking, well, can what happened to the anticipations happen to us? Can we become anticipations to something else? Can a member of the Invisible Gate, can a member of the Tribunal become so old that its successor, that whoever comes and replaces, is not really an improvement, just as Vivec is not necessarily an improvement on Mephala, but rather is related to Mephala, and is more a reflection of the changing of the times.
Yeah.
So,
can we be replaced by a newer model?
We
become redundant. Well, I mean, maybe Vivec's like an iPhone, and that eventually the battery is just going to die, and there's no way to swap it out, and so you just have to buy a new one. You just have to. You don't have a choice. You have to blow $1,200 on a new fucking iPhone. You have to. There's no option. There's no replacement.
Or what happens if you just realize that your old one was actually okay if you run the basic software and just go back to the old one, which is exactly what the Dunmer did.
Just fucking jailbreak it and go, yeah, exactly. Just Ivec. Yeah.
And then as a mother, you do not have to worry. I mean, mothers, the idea of motherhood, it's an archetype that's so simple and everyone understands the concept
but as Vivec points out, unless things in the future are so strange that even Set cannot understand, which is like, unless suddenly we don't need mothers in the future, like, what the fuck is that?
Sorry. To quickly go back to Ivec, part of why I laughed so hard is that the first thing I thought of was the Mac Air book, because it was so thin. You have the Ivec Middle Air book.
Oh god. Very good.
And that's why I was dying laughing.
Very good.
And there are two color schemes. One is either the Ukrainian flag, or the other is the lid is yellow, the bottom's gold. Or blue.
Yeah.
Oh, we have fun here.
So, as mother, you do not need to worry. You do not have to worry unless the future is so strange that even Set can understand. Neither does the executioner or the fool, but I am neither. So, the executioner and the fool are problematic. Nothing really lines up here. I think what Vivec's talking about is the idea of archetypes. So, the executioner being a person who kills things that need to die. So, the idea of like a mother as a functional role, as an archetype. Okay, the fool also is always going to exist. If you sort of go with the Campbellian idea, the fool is always going to be the main character of a myth or a game or something, and so that's going to be like that's an archetype that doesn't go away, because the reality always needs, well, the Elder Scrolls reality, I should say, always needs heroes. There will always be mothers and executioners and fools, unless the world changes beyond that. Yes, exactly. Even in the West, the Rainmaker vanishes. Okay, these ideas are not going to change in nature, even though they may change in representation. So again, the person playing the executioner or the fool or the mother might change, but the idea is always going to be the same, unless, as he says, things go completely fucking backwards.
And it's also nodding to the idea of the monomyth. Even in the West, the Rainmaker vanishes.
Right.
Even in Yokuda, Sept disappears.
Yeah.
So Lorcan will still vanish. The creator of the mortal plane will always fulfill the same roles.
So are we sure that the Rainmaker is Sep? Because I looked into that and I did not come to that conclusion when I wrote this.
The UES piece says it's Shazar.
Yeah, but there's no connection between Shazar and Rain. If there was,
the closest you can get is Kind's Tears.
Yeah. Okay.
Which Kinnereth is literally the Rainmaker.
But hang on, Felix.
Yeah. So like, I always interpreted this like again. I see that people could view it as Yokoda, but it also applies just to the west of Tamriel itself.
Yeah.
Because like between the Bretons and all their bloodshed, between the Redguards again occupying and conquering the western part of Tamriel.
Memory leak.
The issue though is that I don't really see a Sep connection because like Andrew said, rain is usually associated with a completely different god, or in this case a goddess.
Right.
And Redguards seem to generally be fine without rain. It's kind of even mentioned in their own stories and according to
true
nearby Bretons and whatnot that, hey, we called it the Deathlands for a reason. Then the Redguards got there, they're like, oh man, it's even easier to settle here than home. We're gonna do fine.
No left-handed elves here. It
like,
seems pretty good.
yeah. It's kind of like people coming from the depths of Siberia to southern Finland. It's like, oh, it's still cold, but much more pleasantly so.
Really not bad.
It's kind of like that. I've always again associated rain with
you guys get 3 hours of sun here, luxury. Yeah.
So like for me, rain has always been something different. And I think that could also just apply to the west of Terra, but I also see it completely applying in the sense of greater metaphysical understanding of the world and the universe, previous kalpas, etc. That it could also be Yokoda. Although usually Yokoda, as it's been talked about, is more of a shadow of a memory and meant to serve some kind of lesson. It's almost like more of an Atlantean parable rather than something of supreme importance to the current worldview.
What if Atlantis is the previous real world Kalpa?
Well, no, that's probably the Drach. And
the drag,
their kingdom there.
Well, in the real world, it's that wasn't it like? Didn't they say that it's likely that there was like a series of islands that they found?
Yeah.
Okay, so tangent because I'm your local history nerd, dude.
Go for it.
The whole point of Atlantis as an actual story is that it's a parable about society and what makes cities great and how they can be destroyed, especially by forces from within. They grow too aspirational, etc. So it's kind of various parables about modesty and good governance and like a bunch of stuff that would make a bunch of like people in political majors these days cream their pants about, we should learn that. But people took it very literally because probably there were kernels of truth to the Atlantis story that were reflected in various other histories. So that's why common alternate sites for Atlantis include the Greek island of Santorini, where there was originally a volcano in the center of that island that went tits up. And that's why there's a huge crater in the middle of the island surrounded by water.
Yeah, Kresix.
There's also another former city in southern Spain, just west of what are known as the Gates of Hercules, or Heracles rather, because it's Greek. And it's like near Cadiz in southern Spain right now or something, where there's apparently like a huge mudslide that just took out this massive trading city. So that's usually seen as another example. Pompeii, though it's famous to us and happened in the Roman times, was probably not the first kind of cataclysm of its kind. Excuse me, especially when you consider that there are other active volcanoes in Greece and also Turkey, which had a bunch of Greek colonies and whatnot on its western and northern coasts of what we now call Turkey or the Anatolian Peninsula. So there were several real world examples of terrible, awful natural disasters happening. And so people would say, yeah, well, that's what happens when you don't get right with the gods. So be good, kids. Practice good governance, or else Athena or whoever is going to come and literally make you have the worst day imaginable.
Or turn you into a lady with snakes for hair.
Yeah. It should also be mentioned at this point that this might also be a reference to. There are a couple of things that Kirkbride has always been kind of aware of that were missing from the Elder Scrolls pantheons. A sea god being one of them, and a rain god being another one. And he said almost every primitive culture starts with like a god of rain or of harvest or something. And
actually, no.
No, not all of them, but many of them. And you get one of the things you pointed out is that a lot of times these gods will become assimilated by other cultures and sort of mature into more complex beings as cultures merge together and such.
Ooh, this is one of my favorite little tangents.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, we can actually see.
Yes, I think Kain is a rain god. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kain is a rain god, which is why it's probably also associated with Tava with the rain gods. But generally, it's more about wind.
Yeah.
With them, there's always that wind association rather than rain. Because again, desert people. But it's fine.
Yeah,
this isn't the tangent that I want to go
weather.
on, though. What we actually see throughout human history and the various figurines that we've seen is also direct reflection of the greatest challenges or obstacles to people of that society at the time. So this is why, for example, when we're all a bunch of cave people kind of like roaming around in various tribes and clans, the most important gods are fertility gods and fire gods, because those are the two big important things for our people at that time. Rain, well, who kind of fucking cares? I care more about being able to see shit at night and that the children will survive. So those are the two really big ones, and that's why there's a lot of animalistic totems so related to hunting and guarding against other potential predators. As we get to agriculture, though, then rain gods, river gods, water gods, sun gods, all of a sudden that's way more important. And that's also where you get stuff like the Code of Hammurabi and the Epic of Gilgamesh, where, hey, so now that we kind of have a society, we need to have some fucking rules here. So here's the rules and how the world works, and that's why we are at the top. Please pay no attention to the fact that I wrote this by myself to put me at the top. It just trust me on this, bro. And look at that. Then as those societies further grow and develop, well, now we need gods of not just agriculture, but we need gods of the air and certain stars that tell our stories and explain certain things. And that's what and look, we have metallurgy now, so we get gods like Hephaestus. Yeah. And all of a sudden society is getting more and more advanced to the point where, you know what, there's kind of so many gods. Let's just start to narrow it down. Maybe there's just kind of one big creator god, as now we're getting to the point where we can start talking about philosophy and the self as we're beginning to understand and articulate these things after millennia of existence and having more I shouldn't say sedentary, but a more stable existence as peoples and societies due to the previous aforementioned agricultural revolutions. So now it's, look, now we're actually starting to wonder more about the self and the universe and potential other different kind of afterlives. And sure, we see this again with the sort of earlier developments of agriculture in the earliest great city-states like the Bronze Age civilizations throughout China, Egypt, Greece, etc. And then, that starts it on this new path of the various different gods. And then all of a sudden, like, again, notice with a lot of the world religions today, like the established ones, is they can trace their lines back to these, like millennia ago, before the current religions even existed in any recognizable shape or form. But now we're talking far more about things like the afterlife, something bigger than ourselves. We're talking about, in many cases, usually a singular god or a singular concept to aspire to. So, hey, sure, Buddhism and Hinduism actually have a ton of gods, but at the same time, it's kind of a singular core concept to, escape the cycle, return to the one. If you're a Christian, hey, existence can be pretty tough, but that's why you gotta do the good deeds and listen to the good book and listen to all the different prophets, and you can actually start making Earth a little bit better. And if you are good enough, then you are rewarded in the afterlife for said good deeds and being a good Christian. It's the same with Islam. Like, all of a sudden, okay, I shouldn't say it's the same, but like, there's a lot of like, it's gotten more advanced, more sophisticated as time goes on. And we're probably only going to see that even further in the years to come, assuming we don't annihilate ourselves in World War III or planetary apocalypse of some kind.
And in that respect, there's some stuff happening in chat right now that's very interesting about how the Beyond Skyrim crew are talking about why there aren't any weather gods, or very few weather gods in Tamriel, especially in Yokuda. The Yokudans have very few that are mentioned, so they surely have to have, like, they've got a god of too many gods, so there surely has to be some out there, so they just probably haven't been mentioned yet. And
unless, just to be entirely bizarre with Yokudans, what if, to go with the line of that Felix was saying, what if the god of too many gods is the monotheistic god? We've got too many gods. Let's just have one.
Let's just have one, for God's sake. Yeah.
Yeah. Just purely as a thought. But yeah, that whole idea of the kind of. But the whole idea of the kind of the Rainmaker vanishes because no one needs him anymore. That I'm pretty certain I remember in the second episode of this cast, way back when MK was on, he was talking about how Zenithar was just not really a concept you'd imagine a kind of primeval forces having, and so it's the idea of that you get gods like Zenithar only in certain situations, which is what Felix was talking about. It's the sense of the Rainmaker vanishes because the Rainmaker is no longer relevant, and although it's kind of holding that tension in place that the ideas are not going to change in nature, even if they may change in representation. That's again kind of that's kind of saying that there has to be a core to it, a core to every god, even if how it's expressed is going to change. Going from that sort of expression that each god is relevant in its way, but which bit of it is relevant will be different. It points to, it kind of goes to the whole kind of you look at a cylinder from one direction and yes, it's true, it's a circle. You look at it from another direction, it's a rectangle. Yes, that's true, but the truth is a cylinder. It's just the idea of that constantly evolving way that words are a thing. This kind of constantly evolving understanding of what the divine is and how that works is what's kind of being grappled with here, and Vivec is kind of applying that to herself because that whole idea of divinity is now being internalized.
Could it be a Mike the Liar style criticism of the universe wherein there is no actual rain god in the cosmology? that
Probably.
That Kirkbride is pointing that out and be like, this is dumb. There's a missing rain god. I'm just going to spell it out.
I mean, maybe, but another way of looking at it with reference to like an earlier segment of the sermon about, sure, whoever is occupying that place may change, but the place remains. I think that's also just a reference to the metaphysical structure of the Elder Scrolls universe. There's always going to be a weird kind of middle ground between I am and I am not. Is it always going to be Naren? Probably not. Is it always going to be the same 8 Adra? Probably not. But somehow someone's going to kind of do the same thing of shit sucks. Let's fix it. Oops, I broke it, and oops, here are the new gods all over again. Like that's kind of
simplify that
the vibe I get from it, right? It's why there's a lot of people having fun with who are the actual gods over in Akavir, which one is which, and it's like, oh, the tiger dragon, wait, no, that's totally actually Jubal, and because the tusk of the bat tiger, it all makes sense, and like, yeah, you know what, that could work. The snake people worshiping Boethia or successor to Boethia, yeah, I can totally buy that. Like this, just have fun with it. It's good stuff, right? But that again is kind of like there's always going to be a place for gods to assume positions, which is why again I've always interpreted, to bring it back to the Yokudan / Red Guards, the far shores is less an actual physical location so much as it is a place, the way, say, you have a place on the podium, like first place, second place, third place, like it's not like a physical like that, and that's where they always are and where they always stand. It's like it's a position, it's an idea, it's that kind of metaphysical place, as opposed to the far shores where everyone waits. It's more like, yes, I saw the secrets of the universe and I managed to escape the cycle, thereby achieving permanence, so I can just, shit gets too bad, I can just yeet myself from existence and pop back in. Oh, things are a bit different, well, I'll take a new name. Like we even see that reference where Tuatha was the god of nobody really knows or nobody cares, before it was, oh wait, no, now he's important, ferrying souls to said far shores, a place of waiting. So like I've always tried to view it in more of a less literal sense and more of a conceptual place, as opposed to like, yeah, like, you take a left here and go down to the end of the road and do a right after the roundabout, and you're there, kind of physical place, right? That's how I've interpreted that.
No, I mean it sounds like pure mantling to me. The core concept, you become that deity. It's not that John becomes Awa or whatever. It's that John and Awa are now equal, and they always were. And then piggybacking on what Hendris was saying, gods evolve alongside the culture they belong to. Is it that the gods evolve, or that someone else took their place and just adopted the mantle?
I mean, depending who you ask, Catholicism is kind of just polytheism with extra steps. It's, hey, instead of worshiping the god of the sea, why don't you worship this patron saint of sailors instead? Hey, like, like, speaking of someone with Catholic family, like, I know that's a more controversial thing to say, but it is kind of like, like, for example, fun, just like thing that's I know some people have done. There's a statue of I think Saint Anthony. I think it's Saint Anthony, and it's a statue. He's there in his monk robes, and he's holding a little baby Jesus. And apparently, when you lose something, and there's a little compartment, a little drawer underneath the statue of Saint Anthony here. If you lose something and you can't find it, then what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to go to the statue, pray to it. You remove the little tiny baby Jesus and put it into the little compartment under the saint, and you keep praying to Saint Anthony so that you'll find your things. And then when you finally find the things, or the thing, whatever you were looking for, then thank you, Saint Anthony. And then you take the baby Jesus and put it back in his arms. And I'm like, okay, that's a pagan ritual. Like, you cannot convince me that doesn't have its roots in paganism from millennia ago. Oh my fucking god. And
listen,
so that
here,
to me was just like,
you can have your baby Jesus back when you find my things.
yeah, it's like, yeah. And I was like, so what? Like, we're holding baby Jesus hostage now? Like, what?
Saint Anthony, I'm not messing with you here.
Saint Anthony ain't gonna see baby Jesus.
So you want to see your baby Jesus again, Saint Anthony? All right.
Yeah. So, and so things like that, and certain rituals, like, yes, like when approaching the altar, you must always go down on one knee, and which knee you go on has to be correct, and make the sign of the cross. And there's all this like ceremony, and certain things can only be used and only on certain days, and we're in liturgical time or feast time or ordinary time, and I'm like, okay, like, this is a lot, people. Can we just be real about this?
Well, speaking of a lot,
yes,
yeah.
This is what I am. This is what was said to I am when Vivec was whole. The wise shall not mistake this. So, we should probably describe what is meant by Vivec being whole. This is I suspect that this is a reference to the previous sermon where Vivec became the wheel by putting 8 spokes in and becoming the void.
And also after the pomegranate banquet.
Yeah.
If you look at the previous sermons in general, Vivec has spent a lot of time being other things. First of all, in the egg, and then merging with a simulacrum and doing all sorts of other bits, and then becoming headless and so on. There's just he is very rarely just
fully assembled
one thing.
Yeah. And I found a podcast called Saint Anthony's Tongue that covers Saint Magic. Ooh, okay. So the fact that Vivec becomes a wheel at this point reminded me of the Wheel of Fortune, which in the tarot involves discovering your fate. And accept
one Mullig Ball.
Well, discovering it, but also accepting it, which is hard to do, but in my opinion, relevant entirely to the sermon. I think this is actually what the sermon revolves around, if you pardon the joke.
No, I will not. Real quick, Chris.
Yeah.
I just realized that ESO drops are active on the stream right now.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Yeah. I just got a crate.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I did that for you, entirely on purpose, and not by accident in any way.
I do this for you, Red Legions, for I love you.
It's because we're streaming under the ESO game, and that's just how that's how ZeniMax is doing it. If you stream it under ESO, then you get drops. That's just how it works.
I wonder, since I technically have it, but I think I still need to install it, so maybe I don't have it yet. Oh well.
It's been like a year.
So long as you have an account created, it should be able to claim it.
And you have to link your account to Twitch.
Oh well, okay.
So the reason why this is important is because of what I am says next, which is, this is why you were born of a Netchman's wife and destined to merge with the simulacrum of your mother, guild and blended in all the arts of the star-wounded East, under water and in fire and in metal and in ash, 6 times the wise, to become the union of male and female, the magic hermaphrodite, the martial axum, the sex death of language, and unique in all the middle world. So she basically gives Vivec all her titles all at the same time, and just sort of lays out Vivec's responsibility, so to speak. This is what Vivec knew then why he would record his Book of Hours. So that's what we're seeing here is what's explained in the wheel, which is Vivec is being told by her mother, the right person to tell him, what Vivec's job is, what Vivec's destiny is. And this is at the same time an enlightening moment for Vivec, but also horribly limiting. Because up until this point, Vivec, I suggest, had ideas about what Z was going to become. And I think that Vivec had an idea of Amaranth at this point and thought that was where Z was headed.
Wasn't there something that we just talked about, I think when we were discussing 28?
Mm-hmm.
There was a bit where when you define something, you limit it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That was that in 28 we were talking about that? Or
we were talking about the expression of truth as language and the connection of language to
yes.
I also think
that's right. So the more you define something, the more you put the words out there, the less truth it becomes. Because you're applying a rigid definition to it.
Yeah.
So that is interesting.
Okay. Just one little thing that I also want to add is, again, crucially, in that part of the sermon about the Star Wounded East, that's a reference to Vardenfell and just kind of Morrowind in general. And so that, again, is part of what leads me to believe that when they're talking about the Rainmaker disappears in the west, I'm thinking more west of Tamriel rather than, say, west, which is Old Yokota. So that's just another little caveat that I want to get in.
UASP suggests the west is actually Cyrodiil. Because UASP suggests that the Rainmaker is Shazar, which I don't think holds up. But
that's another thing about this, that it feels like this whole passage is just a whole string of words. It's a string of titles. But then if you're going to try and encapsulate any being in words, then
there's going to be a lot of them.
Pretty much the same thing, yes. Because purely, if you think about titles that people can have, you can have spouse, you can have whatever your job title is, you can have parent, and whatever other designator. You can have podcaster, for example, for us, because that's part of what we do as a hobby. And
ideal job, meme historian.
Yeah, if anyone's going to pay you.
Yes,
for that.
yes, long cat. I remember that one.
Yeah, but if the whole sum of what you are and who you're doing is expressed, it's going to end up as that sort of a word salad anyway. It sounds impressive, but then it would for anyone if everything that they were was enumerated.
I mean, if I used all my nicknames that I've gotten over the years, it sounded like I had some kind of epic title.
Yeah, I totted up my nicknames at some point, just at the point of secondary school, and I was like, okay, that's about 20.
So Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen, the first of her name, Queen of the Andals, the first best, protector of the Seven Kingdoms, Mother of dragons, at the Khaleesi of the Great Grass Sea, the Unburnt, the Breaker of Chains, yada 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 yada.
Yeah, it's not a name; it's a history. And
yes,
but that's the point here. That's the point I'm making is that Vivec is given her.
Ashlanders do.
Yeah,
Ashlanders do that.
Vivec is given her entire history, like right there, like this, and I am basically tells Vivec, this is what you're gonna do, this is it. But that's the point, is that she's telling Vivec, this is all you're gonna do. This, you get to do all this, but it's the only things you get to do. And it's for a person with the kind of aspirations that Vivec has always had, as we know, it's really it's
depressing.
just depressing that Vivec's not going to be able to move beyond this kind of stuff. And that's why Vivec why he would record his Book of Hours. It's because now Vivec understands. It's because I.M. is helping Vivec understand her ego and, you know, how to remove herself, how to destroy herself, so that, you know, because a humility, after all, is one of the first steps into ego death, is to understand your place in the universe, is to understand how small you are. And up until this point, Vivec's been fucking Daedra and teaching the big badass of the Dunmer and doing all this other kind of great stuff. And I.M. basically tells her, and that's all you're gonna do. And that's not the beginning. That's it. You know.
It's like the butter bot from that Rick and Morty episode.
Yeah.
What is my purpose? You serve butter.
Oh my god. Yeah. Join the party, pal. So, why is this sermon forbidden? Because the next line is, this sermon is forbidden. This is partially from the Book of the Law by Aleister Crowley. But it, I think, is also forbidden because I think this in my head, I think this is something that the temple added afterwards. Or that perhaps Vivec added while this sermon was being written because Z was too ashamed to admit that that Z even has a limitation, you know?
Maybe it's forbidden in the sense that this is not religious teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not teaching any kind of moral here. There is no part of the story that is important for religious purposes. This is just a story of me, a story of Vivec. It could be in that way, and that's how it's forbidden. Like, don't quote this sermon because there's nothing holy here. It's, I don't know. I mean, that seems anti-Vivec there. because anything Vivec does is holy.
Well, it's kind of that moment of doubt which Vivec doesn't want. It's if we're talking about the purpose of the Tribunal Temple and everything that Vivec was trying to achieve with the temple as a whole, then doubt wasn't something that was allowed. I mean, Vivec says that we didn't allow doubt, and in doing so, we alienated some of the people we should not and kept some of the ones that probably weren't that worthwhile. Well, more or less. I'm paraphrasing. So
there's an analysis of the Book of the Law that specifically talks about this line. This sermon is forbidden. The sermon is untrue. And in it, they suggest that the lines were put there in the Book of the Law to tell people that the Book of the Law is written, it is the law for Crowley and nobody else. So the reason why it's forbidden is because dilemma practitioners need to find their own law, and that this is the Book of the Law exists for Crowley, but it is not the same law that everyone else will have to follow because everyone is different, and et cetera, et cetera. So the reason why it is forbidden and untrue is because it is forbidden and untrue for other people. I would suggest that in that respect, the reason why it's forbidden, why Sermon 18 is forbidden and untrue, is because it is about Vivec's nature and nobody else's. It's about Vivec discovering what her will is, because that's what this is. It's your fate. It's your destiny. It's Vivec discovering my will is, born of the Netchman's wife and destined to merge with her, et cetera, et cetera. And so that applies solely to Vivec and nobody else.
Yes, although the cynic in me says that I don't know whether that's simply to highlight that from kind of a nod from Kirkbride, because Thelema as a practice, as I understand it, is to achieve a form of self-enlightenment. It's to make you into something approaching a god. Or it's to make you into it's self-improvement.
Well, definitely, kind of but unfortunately, it's become muddled by so many years and the philosophy of assholes that it's become.
But maybe. But what I was going to say is that the idea of, kind of the Tribunal Temple being a self-help book. I mean, you've got the lessons of ruling kings to try and teach you to be to become a ruling king, but that's potentially something specifically for Nerevar or the Nerevarine in some ways of thinking. And the Tribunal Temple as a whole is not about that same form of self-mastery and ascension.
Right. It's about oppression.
Yeah.
It's about managing these fucking Hausdunmer.
Yeah.
Who used to be preppers, and now they're trying to rejoin society. They used to be Ashland preppers, and now they're trying to come back and rejoin society, and they don't remember how to do it too good. Yeah. And so that's kind of what the tribunal has to deal with. That's what these fucking guards are pissed about. You know, let's not make this official, Outlander. So anyway, in this world and others, 18 less 1 the victor is the magical disc hurled to reach heaven by violence. I still haven't come up with a really great way of explaining the hurling disc. So I'm still working on that.
Isn't conventional wisdom suggest that it's the wheel itself?
No.
It's the wheel during a dragon break, I thought, because the axles all blur into one.
It's that's the problem, is that the problem is not so much the idea of the magical disc of like a structure flung to reach heaven by violence, in other words, to become divine. But the problem is that equating that with 18 less 1. That's
what if it's
the part where I'm stumbling.
Magnus? What if it's Magnus
it's
and
not,
the whole?
What?
Hang on.
A disc in early cultures in the real world, the sun is always depicted as a disc. You know, in Catholic imagery, in Egyptian imagery, in anything that has a circle around the head. And so, since the sun is essentially Magnus, the Holy Left, could we say that Magnus reached heaven by violence, by tearing through oblivion?
If you're Nerevar, that would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
And could we say that Magnus won because he's not embroiled in the struggle of Mundus?
That wouldn't be the opinion of somebody who's in love with the world.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But maybe this is Vivec saying Magnus won. Magnus may not feel like it, and that's Vivec is making no statement.
I would argue that Vivec wouldn't feel that way either. Magnus left, and in fact, Vivec uses some language earlier in the sermons that is very not flattering about Magnus.
So wait, hang the fuck on. It's 18 less 1, right?
Yeah.
17, which
is the victor.
The prince is the prince is plus Jiglag.
The one, but the 1 is called the victor.
The trick.
And I wouldn't suggest that 18 is necessarily the number of Daedra.
Isn't
No, that's why we're saying 17 might be the total number.
Yeah,
of
18.
Daedric. 18 less 1.
I mean,
and if the 1 is the victor, then that could be, the winner of the arena. So whoever achieves Amaranth.
Unless you're going Cameranian, so to speak, and counting Lorcan as a Daedra, that would do it.
Yeah.
And Lorcan being the one who vanishes, etc., being the less 1.
would be the
maybe.
one I would also suggest would be the victor, because
Victor. Yeah.
according to Vivec,
Well,
he would
Yes.
Vivec would suggest that Lorcan would be the victor.
Can we say that Talos won when Numidium was given over?
Wait,
Possibly.
no.
But-
It's got to be Lorcan. It's
Yeah.
got to be Lorcan because.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Because okay,
Okay.
show you working.
I'm going to do my best. No promises.
Carry the two.
Lorcan says when he's quote unquote defeated, and he has his heart ripped from his body and they try to destroy it and they can't. He says, for mine is the heart of the world and one was made to satisfy the other. That's how he wins. It's a form of permanence. Even though he's the missing god, it's a form of permanence and thus allows change, which allows for all the various different Kalpic cycles, all the different, wheels of time and existence to revolve around that. And he failed so that others may learn how not to reach heaven by violence. I think it works.
I think it does too. But I'm really liking the Magnus reaching heaven by violence.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't. He threw a hissy fit.
Yeah, he did.
That's why I make the connection between the Numidium and Magnus.
A violent hissy fit.
Yeah, but
which
this
is
is
why I make the
Vivec we're talking
connection
about.
between Magnus
Vivec is
and
not going to
Numidium.
say anything flattering about Magnus.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, you don't have to say something nice about a guy.
All fantasy, it's not Amoranth. No.
No.
No, this is not a hot tub stream. This is
See, I am so old that I don't even know what the fuck that reference is about.
Probably one of those famous hot tub streamers out there.
streamers.
Yeah, boob stream, a very
boob
famous titty
streamers.
streamer. Yeah. So
Okay, sure, that's a thing. Fine, whatever.
Of course
kids.
it is. Lorcan. The other thing that it might be, in addition to being Lorcan, I would also suggest that could also include Chezarines. Because if that's the case, then we're once again talking about Amaranth, because that's what that's what
that tracks.
That's what Jubal was.
So
Jubal
That's
was
what I
Chezarine.
said at the start. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
So-
fuck me. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Chris, I was
Sorry.
saying it could be Amaranth.
Sorry. Yeah. I must have missed. No. I don't
Why
listen
am
to
I
what you
here
people
so
say.
listen
Apparently.
to me, man? Jesus.
So
You know?
then does that imply that all the Chezarines, or to put it a little more practically, all player characters, their goal is to achieve Amaranth?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I think the goal of the player characters always being prisoners, which again, prisoners of the world in the game, etc., etc. I think the purpose is to move the series and thus the universe closer to the point of Amaranth. I think it's necessarily up to the players themselves to do that.
Sure, and I mean we're ignoring the players do whatever they want to do kind of thing. I mean, this is a purpose.
If you want to be a naked Nord in Morrowind, no one can stop you.
Yeah, I mean we're talking cosmological purpose, existential purpose rather than having fun in a video game purpose.
Can't it be both? ¿Por qué no las dos?
Sure, why not? I don't know. I mean, I think the instilling a purpose in a game from a development standpoint, right? Here's a game and here's your purpose. That I think is counterintuitive to what Bethesda wants for players. When they say you make your own choices, do whatever you want. That's kind of like Minecraft. Like, what's the purpose of Minecraft? It's that there really isn't one. You just kind of set your own goals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's more or less how Bethesda's always treated the Elder Scrolls. I mean, yeah, they give us stuff to do, but they never tell us to do. Well, they do tell us to do it in Oblivion.
They do.
Yeah.
Skyrim is terrible for that.
Yeah, and Skyrim. Yeah, a lot of railroading.
It's like, hey, all right, here's your start and your tutorial and go do the main quest now. And a lot of people are like, and fuck you, I'm out. And they just go and do
Yeah,
Ooh,
it's
a
like,
cave.
I'm just gonna. Oh, what, Patrick Stewart? You want me to hold this fucking thing? Yeah, no, I'll hold it,
dude,
but I'm
no.
gonna go over there. Fuck this job.
I'm gonna
Actually-
take this plate and stand on it and speedrun strats my way out of this dungeon. And
Okay, you know what? That reminds me. I saw this really cute story from someone one time. I think it might have been on the Elder Scrolls or the Skyrim subreddit, or maybe it was like from somewhere else. But I just distinctly remember, and hopefully Chat can corroborate this if they've seen it on various other platforms. This really cute story of a kid who was playing Skyrim and then got to the point where, of course, the dragons come, and the kid didn't like seeing that the dragons could attack inside cities and kill characters that the kid liked, and so the kid went and started a new game and deliberately did not set in motion the quest that would allow dragons to show up, so that there's no dragons and therefore everyone lives and is happening. I'm like, that we need more energy like that in this world. I respect that child.
So the end of the sermon is also important. The ending of the world is Amsavi, is how this sermon ends.
Yes.
The ending of the word or the world?
The
world.
Yes.
Zawardo!
And so that's relevant because, and this is partially, I quoted a little bit of the Trial of Hoggett and Paul here. Yeah, Hendris, it is kind of, yeah, they do kind of push you. And so it's one of the suggestions made by Vivec is that when there's the moment at Red Mountain when they break the dragon and create Amsavi, there's a point where effectively, I'm trying to find the exact line here. Okay. A whole universe swelled up to legitimize his throne, and as the old universe where Vec the Mortal still lapped up God's blood warped itself to accept its new equivalent. And like all things magical, it simply could not happen, could not be. The Red Mountain was the intersection of the is not, as it was of old, its center point, and it did not hold. And so the dragon, having broken, saw fit to heal, turning into the world you know now. So what he's suggesting, what Vivec is suggesting, is that Amsavi ended the world to create the gods, or the three of them created the gods, created the god Amsavi, and ended an old world and began a new one, which is part of what Vivec also mentions, is that this is also due to like bits of the old world leaking into the 36 lessons. In other words, Vivec's admission of guilt that's hidden in Sermon 29. And that sort of timey-wimey shit is pretty relevant to understanding how the 36 lessons work in terms of like reconciling disparate events into one sort of thing. And that is also the end of the sermon.
Yeah.
Wait, do I have the... Yes, I did. Okay. I thought I had linked the 36 Rages. I didn't see the link. Okay. So, how did that take us? I thought it was going to take... It's only an hour and 15. Pretty good.
Woo.
Hey, we're getting better at this with minimal tangents, even though we did have a few.
We did. Oh, yeah. Well, I think that's why we do it.
Get your bingo cards ready. Us
supposed
going
to
on
have
tangents, me showing up late. Somebody better have bingo.
The tangents are part of the fun.
Yes.
John's looking contagious through the screen now.
Yeah, I've also had to pee for the last 45 minutes, so we're gonna...
It's all right. I've been cracking off farts this whole time.
And thus he let forth the great flood.
So 2 weeks, folks, and we will be back with Sermon 19.
Yes.
And unless we suddenly have the desire to do something else, in which case we will follow our will.
Or if shit breaks again.
Yeah, or if shit breaks. Please don't let that happen.
No.
I hope everything's settled with your tech issues, dude.
Me too. I want to thank everybody who subbed today. Owain and somebody who I missed in chat. I'm sorry. I don't have... I'm on a new chat program right now, and it doesn't do everything it was supposed to. So thanks, everybody, for showing up, and we will see you in 2 weeks. And I love you, everybody. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.